Hey everyone, so in this video we are going to learn about how to create HTML forms. We will learn about the different types of form elements, form attributes. We will learn about the input types and how to create input attributes. So by this end of this video you will learn everything about all the important form elements, input types and its attributes. So let's start, let's dig into this. And the next screen is coming up the VS Code where I will show you all the form elements. I will not style the form. We will look the styling in some other videos, basically the CSS of the form. But in this video, we will keep it simple. We will just make the form. We will look upon the different types of all the form elements, its attributes, input types, input type attributes, everything. So yeah, let's dig into it. And the next screen is coming up VS Code where I will write the code. So before moving forward, let's discuss about why forms are important. So if you are starting your front-end journey, and the first thing you should learn is forms, right? Now, why is that? It's very obvious that any website you enter on internet today, the first thing they will ask you is to log in or register. And the method that is being used in that is forms, right? Login form, register form. If you are contacting them, the method which is being used is through forms, right? Forms are being used to create those contact forms, login form, register forms. If you're filling an application, that is done through forms, right? So forms are pretty important and they are used everywhere in websites to log in, register, contact, application, making a new create account, everywhere. So let's do it and I will meet you in the end of the video. Okay, so right now I'm in the VS Code and let's start how to create forms. Okay, so I have written here 4 points, like why form is important. So we have discussed this, but now let's learn about all these remaining points. So second point is different types of form elements. So let's look into what are different types of form elements. Let's discuss the first form element, and the first form, most important element is input. So what input does is, input creates a box type structure where we can just write anything, whether it's alphabet or whether it's any number, right? So input creates a element where we can take input from a user. So it can be any number or alphabets, anything, symbols, right? So this is the first form element. Let's comment this also. Input form element, right? The second form element is label, and what label do is label defines a label for the form, for the any form element. So like if I write here username, right, and if I create input type text, so what it will do, it will create the label for this input type. So if I can see, yeah, so here it created a username label for this input types, right? So this is the second form element. Okay, so the next important form element is text area. So what is text area? Text area usually defines a box where text area defines a multi-line input field. So if I show you here, you can see it defines a multi-line input field. How it is different from input field, we will discuss this, but let's first create a label for this text area. Let's say message. Okay, so it should look, yeah, so we can just write multi-line here. This is the form text area. Now there are different attributes of Textarea. Like first attribute is rows. We can define rows, and let's give rows 30. So what it will do, it will increase the height of the Textarea. So you can see this, like row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. It increases the height of Textarea. And okay, so second, in the same manner we can define the columns for this Textarea, and let's write 30. Let's see. So yeah, it increases the width of the input field. So this is how rows, row 1, row 2, row 3, and columns are like this, 1, 2, 3. So like 30 row columns and 30 rows. So this is how it works. Okay, so next form element is select, and let's see how it works. Let's define a label. So what select do? Select defines a drop-down list. Like you must have seen in my websites that it will ask you for a gender, and then you click on the drop-down list and you select whether you are male, female, or others. So we will create the same here. So how it do? We will use the form select element select, right? And then we will define the options. What options we want to in those drop-down list. First is second option, let's option is female, right? Third option is others. So what it will do, it will create a drop down list. So you can see here, it created a drop down list, male, female, others. So there are different types of attribute being used in select. Like if I use size here, so if I write here 2, so what it will do, it will show me the 2 visible options from these 3 visible options. Now it's not like that. You can see here 2 visible options, male, female, but if you scroll down, you can see others also. So it will, so size attribute will show you the 2 visible attributes, or how much size will you give, it will show that much visible options, right? So another form attribute for select is selected. So like if I write here, let's remove this, if I write here selected, right? So what it will do, it will select, it will automatically like in default manner it will select the female. So if I see here, so it automatically by default it selected the female. Now I can just select any other, but if I refresh it again, it will by default will take the option female. There is one more attribute, like if I click here multiple, so it will gives us the opportunity to select multiple options in the drop down list. So like if I press control, so I can select more than one, right? You can see here we can select more than one. So this is all about the select, and this is one of the most important form element. So let's discuss about the next form element, and the next form element is button. Form element. Okay, so next important form element is button. So what button do is, if I write here button, and if I write here click me, so it will create a button form element for me, right? So it here creates a form button, and I can just click it. Now button are being used to create some on click, to create some certain functions if we click that button. So for that we use on click functions like this. I write here alert, and if I write here inside this you clicked, so what it will do, if I just click it, it will show me a message, alert message, and it says you clicked. So we can use button to perform some on click functions if we click that button. So, okay, so we have discussed all the important form elements, and this should be enough, because these are the most important form elements which you will be using in your projects. And there are other form elements I will give you the link of the V3 schools in description, where you can see all the form elements, but these are the most important form elements you will mainly use in your projects, right? So we have covered the second point also. Let's move on to the third point, and let's see what are the different types of inputs and its attribute. Okay, so right now we have discussed about the different types of form elements. Now let's discuss about the different types of input and its attribute. So we will edit in this. So until now we have discussed one type of input, that is input type text. Now let's discuss the next input, and the next type of input we are going to discuss is input type password. Let's create the label, right? Let's say here password. Let's say input type password. Okay, so the input type password will create a password, and as you can see, it is not showing the alphabet because it's the password, right? Okay, let's create the next form element, and next form element is radio. So let's languages, and now let's create the radio. What are the radios? So we will give input type radio. So what it will do, it will create a circle where we can just tick or untick it. Now radio, and we will give language 1. So let's create another level in C++, right? We will create again the input and again the radio, right? And for that we can again give the label Java, right? So you can see it creates the radio buttons. Let me first, yeah, so you can see here. Okay, now radio, why radio is used? Now radio can, the feature of the radio button is you can tick only one, but right now as you can see we can tick them both. So why it is happening? Because we did not give the name, so we have to give name for particular input type, right? So, and like now you can see it's taking only one, so that's why radio button are used to take the one condition only, one option only, right, from the user, either it's C++ or it's Java, right? But if I just change the language of name, so you can see this name is a different language, this name is different, so it will allow us to tick both the options, right? But this is not radio button. Radio button is used to tick only one of the options. So either we can just choose C++ or either we can choose Java. Now the next thing which we are going to do is we are going to look is checkbox, and in checkbox we can tick more than one option. So what it will do, it will create a two checkbox type. Now we can just check them, or we can check more than one. Like if I have, let's create something up here. What it will do, it will allow us to check both the anime, whether you can check both anime and music both. So as soon as we gave name the same, it should behave like a radio, but it's not behaving like a radio. Now also it is also accepting both the ticks instead of giving the name same, because what it is a type of checkbox, and checkbox allow us to tick more than one option, right? So that's the difference between radio and checkbox. Let's move on to the next input type button, and so you can see it says click, right? So it is same as the button on click, like the button we discussed here. It is same as the button. So what I will do, I will just uncomment it, right? And I will, so it is same as the button tag form element, and input type button is same. The function of both these are same, right? We can also write here on click alert here also in input type. It will perform the same function. At on clicking it will give an alert message you click, right? So both are same. And the next input type is email. So let's give me file. Email, right? And let's input type email. So what it will do, it will allow me to just enter the email, right? Now you can see it is accepting the text, but the one thing we will look forward is look in the upcoming video is required attribute. So if I just write here required, right, and if I just write anything and if I click on the submit button which I will create later, so what it will do, it will give me a warning that yes, so it is giving warning me right now, please include hashtag. So the use of required is that the browser will automatically creates a validation for your all input types, whatever the required input is, whatever the input is required. So required is a client side validation which is available for you. We can also create a validation from the JavaScript, but required is a client side validation which browser provides us, right? So let's move on to the next input type, and the next input type is file. Let's say file, and what it is, let's create a label first. Well, let's say file, right? So what it will do, it will just allow us to choose a file. Like as soon as I have clicked it, it allows me to choose a file. So it's very simple and it's pretty famous, right? So let's move on to the next the input, and the next input is, let's first create the label, and the next input is number. So in this input you can input any number. So if I just write here input type number, so what it will allow me to so as you can see, it's not accepting the text right now, right? I am writing it, it is not accepting the text right now. Now when I will type numbers, it is accepting now, right? And you can also increase it from here, right? So number does the same thing. Now the next input type is telephone number. Now what is the difference between the number and the telephone? And the telephone input type, like input type and TEL, the attribute which we use to create a telephone is TEL. So what it will do, it will allow me to write here my number, right? Now it is accepting the alphabets also, and it is accepting the numbers also. So there is a attribute which we will look just after this when we are done with all the input elements, called pattern. So we can give here a certain pattern, right? And in that pattern, after giving that pattern, if we just wrote after it required. So what it will do, that this required validation will check whatever the pattern, phone number pattern we want in this, and then it will give us the warning that you can only enter the number of this pattern, right? So we will look this pattern and required afterwards, but telephone will allow us to enter the telephone number after giving the certain pattern to the telephone we are using. Now let's look into the next input type. And the next input type is date. You get a hint what will be happening in this right now. So it will just create a column where we can just choose the date. So here you can see we are able to choose the date, right? So this was about the input form elements. Now there are other input form elements like color. There are more input elements, color, month, right, time. But the most important are only these one. In your journey, you will use only these one, and I will give the link of the description of the V3 schools. If you want to check it out, you can just go through their website and you can just read out all the input type. But these are the important, and these are the enough. You will be using more than enough, and you will be using only these type of input type elements in your projects. Okay, so until now we have discussed the input, why form is important, different types of form elements and different types of input. Now we will discuss its attribute, and attributes are not like they are very easy, so you will understand it very easily. The first attribute we are going to use is value. So what value will do? The input value attribute specify an initial value for the input field. So like just create a input type value here, right, and I write my name. So what it will do, it will just create a default value for that input field. Now I can just write any name here, like Akash or any name. But if I just refresh this again, it will provide a default value Akshar, right? So value to this thing. The next attribute is the read-only attribute. And what read-only attribute specify that the input field is read-only. If I write here in number read-only, so what it will do, now as you can see, I cannot write anything here, right? Because we are using the attribute read-only, and what read-only do, it specify that input field is read-only. Okay. The next attribute, input type attribute, is the disabled attribute. And what disabled attribute will do, so if I write here in the email the disabled, so it get disabled, like as you can see here, it get disabled here. So the next attribute is size. So what size will do, like if I give here size, and if I write 40, so what it will do, it will increase the size of that input box, right? So you can see here it increased, the size got increased. Okay, so now next attribute is pattern, and now I will tell you what is the use of pattern. So in input type telephone, like if I give some certain pattern, before this small semicolon, the pattern should 3 and it should contain number from 0 to 9. Then after that it should contain, after that the semicolon, it should contain 2. After this semicolon, it should contain 2 numbers, and the 2 numbers should be from 0 to 9. Then the 3 number after the semicolon, and it should contain from 0 to 9. So what it will do, if I just write here anything, if I just click me, so what it will do, it will say please match the format requested. Okay, so this is the use of this pattern, right? Next attribute which is we are going to use is placeholder. So if I show you placeholder here, like let me show you placeholder in the input type. So if I just write placeholder, what placeholder will do, placeholder will just create a hint for me that what should you enter in that input box. So if I write akshat@gmail.com, so it will just create it up. Okay, so it is disabled. Let me first undisable. In the placeholder, it gives a hint to that user that he should write here this type of email, right? So placeholder is just for that. And the next and the last attribute is the required attribute, which I showed you here. Like on clicking on the submit button, this required will check the validation or the pattern which you will use, right? If you write here required, so what it will do, after clicking on the click me button, right, it will first show me here that this should not be empty. So if I just click me right now again, you can see is please fill this field. So after creating the required, please listen me carefully. Required is the client side validation from the browser. Browser gives us this client side required, so we can just use this required attribute and can use all the checks or the validation which are being used in the required in our input fields. So this is all about the input types and all its attribute. We have discussed all the input types, and we have discussed all the important attributes which you are going to use. The last and the second thing we are going to see is different types of form attributes, and it's pretty simple. It will not take much time. Okay, so till now we have discussed the all 3 points. Now let's discuss the 4th point, and in this point we will discuss different types of form attribute. So the first, now before discussing it, I forgot you to tell the one form element in this point, which is the field set. So field set is pretty simple. What it will do, it will just create a box around the data. It will just, in simple word, it will just group all your form, all your input types or your form element in a box. So if I just go to my window, as you can see, it creates a box, and I have to put all these elements or input types inside this field set. So field set, here is the opening and here is the close. Now there is one more tag which is called the legend. And what legend will do, legend, if I just write here form, so it will just give a short message like this is the form, this form, and let's create if I write here contact form, so this is the contact form which we are going to fill. So legend is used there, and it looks good. It looks pretty good, like in a box, and then you are showing it is a contact form. So that's why we use field set and legend. So now let's discuss the form attributes. The first form attribute which we'll be using is action. And what action do is, so if I write here action, so in this between these commas, the action attribute defines the action to be performed when form is submitted. So if I create a submit button here, at the end of the select, if I create a submit button, input type submit, so what it will do after just clicking the submit button, where here we will provide the link of that backend page where we want to store all these data. So after clicking on the submit button, it will submit our form on that page, on the backend page where we want to save our form. Okay, so the next attribute is the target attribute, and what target do is, on clicking on the submit button, what should be our next step? So if I just write target blank and whatever the URL I gave here, if I just click on the submit button, so it will submit the form and it will take us to the let's fill me the first information, all the information, right? Okay, number, any number, it's not taking the number. So let's first any message, and if I click on the submit button, it is taking me to the web page of the link which I gave here. But the main feature is, after I click the target blank, it is taking me to a new window. Like, okay, so the next attribute which we are going to see is the method attribute. And what method attribute is? Method attribute specify the HTTP method to be used when submitting the form data. So there are 2 types of HTTP method which we use in our form. The first HTTP method is the get method, and the second HTTP method is the post method. So the difference is important between the get and post, because get appends the form data to the URL, right? So if I just write, maybe in these input elements, I write my name or anything else, it will, after clicking on the submit button, it will append the data to the URL, right? But if we are using the method post, if we are using the method post, it will not append the data in the URL like get. The second advantage of the post method is the post has no limitations and can be used to send large amount of data. Let's assume there are so many types of input type, right? And if I write here get, and if I click on the submit button, all these data will not be available in the URL, because the data is more than the limitation of the get which can be shown in the URL. But in the post method, it will not show in the URL, but it will send the data, and the post method do not have any limitations, right? It can send any amount of data. The third advantage of post is, like, get is good for non-secure data, like query strings in Google. If you know this query strings in Google, you should search on the Google what is query strings in Google. There we use get method, but here we do not want our data to be shown in the URL. It depends on you. Okay, Mostly the method which is being used is post, because it do not show the data in the URL. So these are the advantages and these are the attributes which we use. Another common attribute is the non-validate attribute, and what it will do, as soon as I write here non-validate, right, non-validate, so it will remove all the required conditions from this form. It will remove all the required conditions from the type of required we give, right? So non-validated is used for this, and these are the attributes which we will use most commonly in our forms. So this is it. We have discussed all the 4 points: why form is important, different types of form elements, different types of input and attributes, different types of form attributes. So if you like the video, please do like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and also if you think I have missed something, then just write it down in the comments so that anyone who is watching this video can also see those comments that I have missed, if I have missed something. So thank you. I will meet in the next video with a new concept of the front-end development. So till then, goodbye.